Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Zone Star State podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Ishmael Johnson here for our first off-season podcast already. Just not even 5 days after the national championship game ish. We're back on the grind. No time off. It's probably how all the coaches feel too. It's like, damn, our season
Yeah,
just ended. Now we got to do all the portal and coaching changes and stuff. But how are you feeling? How are you doing?
doing good. It was kind of weird because, we've had to basically ignore a lot of what's been going on until we've had time to discuss it.
Yes.
Because obviously, Houston went to the wire. We had Tech in there in the Elite Eights, and so we were just like, all right, we got to figure out. We'll have to push all this back basically until
Yes.
next week.
So this is like all stuff from the past. I mean, heck, I'm trying to think what the earliest one is. We did
Month
cover
maybe
Rodney
almost.
Terry. We did
We
cover
covered
Rodney
Rodney Terry, yeah,
Terry
because
and
that,
Sean
that
Miller.
came and went in like a pretty quick window.
Yes. So outside of that, we haven't covered anything the past 3 weeks in terms of coaching changes and transfer portal. So we'll do both of those here. We'll start with the coaches, though. In terms of on the men's side, I'll just
Yeah,
run through them real quick, and then we can dive into each one from there. We have the A&M changeover. Buzz Williams goes to Maryland. A&M hires Bucky McMillan. There was a lot of different people in play there for A&M. They end up going with Bucky McMillan from Samford. For North Texas, Ross Hodge goes to West Virginia. They hired, and I don't know how to say his first name. Is it just Daniel?
I think it's just Daniel Robinson.
Okay, Daniel Robinson from Cleveland State. Stephen F. Austin hired Matt Brower from Texas Tech, who was an assistant there. And then the Texas turnover from Rodney Terry to Sean Miller we've already covered. So I guess we want to start with Buzz Williams and Texas A&M. Buzzball is no more for the Aggies. Now they have Bucky
Yeah,
Ball.
I was about to say, yeah, Buckyball, which is actually apparently a thing.
Yes.
So yeah, this came out pretty. I would say pretty quickly, but like pretty soon after it was obvious that Willard was leaving Maryland for Villanova.
Villanova.
It it was funny. The press release or like the news that came out was that Buzz Williams will be interested in Maryland as if it becomes open, and it was like, okay, like just straight up putting out your job interest out there before that job even opens. Basically,
Just
like, hey, I'm
saying, just
trying
throwing
to
it out
leave,
there.
guys. Yeah,
If it
guys, I
did.
am open to leaving.
And the thing is
Yeah,
that, and then reports start coming out like, well, this happened last year too with Buzz, where he started, reaching out, gauging interest on different things. So this isn't the
yeah,
first time Buzz has done this, but with Willard leaving Maryland, and Willard was gonna leave, like we knew Willard was gonna leave like before their Sweet 16 game against
mhm,
Florida, and it was like, okay,
right.
Willard's gone. So then I think that let Buzz get a head start on it and them get this in place sooner. So Buzz leaves. I don't know if we don't need to do any like eulogy of the Buzz Williams era. Honestly, overall, it was pretty disappointing in
Yeah.
totality. Like they were good the last 4 years in terms of just straight KenPom rankings, 33,
Mhm.
33, 35, 18. So it's
Yeah,
good, but
they
it's
were they were kind of in that weird area where like he obviously did well for the program. They were in the mix for the SEC preseason. They were never a pushover. They were going to be a team that you kind of knew had the potential of like a dark horse Elite Eight contender type of team. But I think the reason why us and then probably A&M fans weren't that disappointed to see him leave was because he's also a top 15 coach in terms of salary in the country,
mhm.
right? And he was not delivering top 15 paid results, right? Let me see if I could pull up right now. Here's a guy who's failed to make the second weekend, right? Every year since he's been at A&M. He made, let's see, 6 years at A&M, no tournament, no tournament. NIT, good run there. Round of 64, round of 32, round of 32, right? And so even in conference outside of that 2022-2023 year, they hadn't performed well in conference outside of that 1 year. And then, of course,
Yeah,
they disappointed in the tournament, losing to Penn State. And so, like, when you have when you have somebody paid like that, right, and you kind of see outside of Wade Taylor, like they didn't play a very attractive brand of basketball, so it's not like you're seeing like you're being entertained a lot of the time either. it just felt like they couldn't fire him, right? Because he wasn't losing. And so it was
Right.
like they were kind of in this
Right.
like squishy middle where like, what do we kind of do? Here are the coaches around Buzz Williams. This is from USA Today's head coach salaries. He was 17th in the country, 4.6 million a year. Here are the coaches around. Let me just throw these names out. 14, Brad Underwood. 15, Fred Hoiberg. 16, Kelvin Sampson. 18, Buzz Williams is 17. 18, Chris Jans. 19, Mike Woodson, who's also gone. 20, Jamie Dixon. 21, Dennis Gates. 22, Kevin Willard, right? These are the names that are around there, right? Around him. Coaches that make less than him. Grant McCaslin, Dana Altman at Oregon. So like
Mm.
Greg Gard at Wisconsin, right? You see the coaches that are around him. And aside from Mike Woodson, who also got fired, every other one of those coaches, except for Hoiberg, Hoiberg, he's still working on Nebraska. We'll
Yeah,
see there.
Nebraska.
But everybody else has made a second weekend. Everybody else has made an Elite Eight run of some type, right? Dixon made the second weekend, elite, things like that. So you kind of were wanting those returns and you just didn't get it. And I feel like Buzz Williams might unfortunately be that kind of coach where I don't know how good his teams can be in March. I believe he's only made one second weekend in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
Looking
since
back in Virginia
2014.
Tech. Yeah, since 2014, he's only made one second weekend. To make it further than that, you have to go back to Marquette, which is over 10 years ago. Again, like I don't think he's a bad coach, but in our opinion, we thought A&M could do better.
Yeah, I had no problem with. I mean, Look, you have 6 years at A&M and you don't make a second weekend. If it's Texas, it's the same thing. And Rodney
And by the
Terry
way,
did
like
make one.
preseason top 5 teams for like the last 3 years, like in the SEC.
Yeah, exactly. I have no problem with this. Moving on, and even if Buzz Williams didn't want to leave, I'd be fine with moving on from him. But he did want to leave, so that made it a very, very mutual thing. I would assume for everybody involved. Now you had Bucky McMillan or Bucky. Yes, Bucky McMillan. Still
Mm-hmm.
getting familiar there. Obviously, like if you follow college basketball closely, you know Samford is a good program and has been a good
Yeah.
program with Bucky at the helm.
Mm-hmm.
In his 5 years there, he took them from where his first year they were 6-13 and 2-9 in conference to 10-8 in conference to 15-3,
Yeah.
15-3 to 12-6. So the turnaround he had at Samford is tremendous. And before that, he was a high school coach in Alabama. So his story
It's a
itself is
very quick rise.
yes, his story itself is incredible. Um, Now it's just for us and for me specifically is getting to know him. And from what I know of him in terms of the buckyball phrase is a lot of
Mm-hmm.
threes. We're looking at like a Nate Oates type guy where they're top 25 in tempo this past year, top
Mm-hmm.
30 in 3-point attempt rate, top 35 in 3-point percentage, and they run good offense. The defense has
Yeah.
been kind of hit or miss at times, but every season they have a top 100 offense with him in terms of the last 3 years. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a complete culture change for A&M. And now it's just for him getting those type of players in because it took Nate Oates, I think, a couple years to really get
Mm-hmm.
Alabama rolling to where he had the offensive players that he wanted. That's what I'm comparing this to.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's like the high end of results. But hey, it's A&M has the same money, if not more money than Alabama. So now it's can Bucky do what Nate Oates did? And I say a couple years. It took him 1 year after because he was so for Nate
Sure.
Oates. He was so good at
Yeah.
Buffalo. First year at Alabama, they went 8-10 in conference, 16-15 overall. Second year, they were the number 9 team in the country in Ken Palm, and
Yeah.
they've been great since.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't mind this hire thinking on it more. Obviously, there were some names out there like Chris Beard, Graham McCaslin, things like that. I don't mind. I still think that, I mean, maybe they did. Who knows? I have no idea what went on. I still think there was a chance for like a Brad Underwood, right? I thought that
Mhm.
was a realistic get. But look, here's the thing. A&M is a hard job to sell at times, right? Because it's kind of one of those jobs where you cater to a lot of masters and it's not the slam dunk type of job that like you're going to get all the money in the world to succeed here and you're going to ball, but it's like it's not necessarily that. It's a good job, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily like, I mean, let's put it this way. With Texas Tech, let's compare it to Texas Tech a little bit, right? Texas Tech has the recent history of being a national title contender. They have the recent history of giving you whatever you need for NIL, right? Like A&M, I'm not saying they're not going to do that for this, but like maybe they're more concerned with football. I would not be shocked. A&M baseball, a big thing. Like we're seeing this with a bunch of schools kind of making their decisions about where to put NIL, and Tech has obviously invested a lot in football, basketball, and softball, but I don't know. Like it would not. It doesn't. It did not shock me that Grant McCasland said, "You know what? I got a good thing here. They're going to give me whatever I want. We're going to be contenders forever. Like
Yep.
I'm just going to keep it here until like one or two jobs open up that I would leave for." But A&M similarly got down the list. It was like, okay, we got to go kind of take a little bit of a risk with a
Yes.
Bucky McMillan, which again, I think it's exciting because I think it's an opposite of what they've been doing in terms of play style, and I like that. Um, but let's see what happens when you give a guy who made it work at Samford some better resources.
Yeah. Real quickly, we do have to touch on like people thought Chris Beard was a done deal here,
Sure,
and
yeah, 100%, 100%.
I, I'm only reading what people are reporting here. I have nothing, no like skin in the game, but
Right.
it was like people thought it was a done deal, and then Beard
Mhm.
announces that he's coming back to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly happened there, but it did feel like it caught A&M off guard, and
Mhm.
then it was like, okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And I still think Bucky is a good coach. I think he could have a good. Um, I definitely think he could have a good tenure at A&M. He is entering the
Mhm.
toughest basketball conference currently. I'm not saying that can't change, but currently the
Right.
toughest basketball conference. And you're going to be playing NBA guys on a nightly basis. So we'll see how he recruits and how he does in the portal this upcoming season. But yeah, fun. I look, watching Buzz Williams play, you appreciate it, but at the same time, like we already have Kelvin Sampson over here, and he's doing it like better than you. So I'm cool
I was
just
about to
watching
say,
Houston basketball and not watching A&M
yeah,
anymore here. So
right.
Bucky hopefully does what Nate Oates did in terms of just making it fun, making it up tempo, getting good guards in here. Not obviously Wade Taylor and them were good guards, but getting guards in there and letting them kind of play a little bit more freely. So it'll be interesting. We'll see how it goes.
Mhm.
North Texas loses Ross Hodge to West Virginia, where Ren Baker's over there. West Virginia people seem a little split on it in terms of the hire. If
Mhm.
I'm them, or if I'm talking to them, all I'm saying is like just give him like 2 years here, and I
Yep.
promise you his teams will win. Like, not saying you're gonna be like where Bob Huggins was. I'm not saying like
Right.
at that level, but like you are gonna have a very high floor, I think, with Ross Hodge, and I think you will be consistently making the tournament. If whether or not he can get to like Elite Eights or Final Four or something, I don't know. But I just think knowing him and knowing like that tree of like McCaslin, Scott Drews, and so on, like he's cut from that cloth 100%, and that's where your winning comes from. So I think it's a high floor hire for West Virginia. We know Ren Baker knows him, and I texted Ren
Mhm.
Baker. I said it's a great hire, and he said thanks. So um, yeah, good hire for them. Obviously hurts for North Texas because this is the end of an era for North
Mhm.
Texas. Like this is very
Yeah.
much Ross Hodge came in with Grant McCaslin, who came in with Matt Brower, who we'll talk about later, came in with Jareem Dowling, and I could go down the list of all the coaches on that North Texas team when they got together in 2017. So we're talking about 8 seasons, I believe it was.
Mhm. Mhm.
Six McCaslin, two Ross, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that included a lot of winning. After the first 2 years, they were in conference championship races every single year. It is the end of an era. Like, there's no doubting, like, it's going to take some work to get it back to there. Even if Daniel Robinson, and this is where we can pivot to Daniel Robinson, um,
Mhm.
like, even if Daniel Robinson's a very good coach, it takes a lot. Like North Texas, as much as I want it to be a basketball school, like it's
Mhm.
still just not quite there in terms of overall investment and overall attendance and so on and so forth. It's gotten much, much better because of McCaslin
Mhm.
and Hodge. But how will they react to a new face, a face that hasn't been there, where you don't have the built-in equity of Graham McCaslin and Ross Hodge and trusting everything that they do? If Daniel Robinson comes in and it's a subpar season on the first year, like, are they going to stick with him in terms of just a fan support thing?
Mhm.
This is where North Texas, as a program and as an athletic department and as a fan base, will be tested for a basketball. If you really want to be a basketball school, you're gonna face this, right?
Yeah.
Like no matter
Yep.
where you
Yep.
are. So this is where I'm really interested to see. From Daniel Robinson's perspective, I know he won at Cleveland State. I know he's bringing some players with him. I know they didn't play the prettiest brand of basketball, not new to North Texas, but still, we'll see if it works over here. So I
Yeah.
watched his introductory press conference. Seems like a very nice guy. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. This one was I was kind of a little bit out of left field. There's no real ties to the state. It felt like to me, it felt like the if this was done, maybe if it was known a little bit sooner that Hodge was leaving, I think we're talking about another head coach that we're going to talk about maybe taking over potentially for
Mhm.
for him. And Matt Brower, you mentioned him. I also think that I think Johnny Estelle was also in discussions, one of the
Yeah, so
top
Johnny
assistants at
Still and Scott
yeah.
Cross were among the ones in terms of ones that media and fans wanted.
Yeah.
I think those were
Yeah.
probably the
Johnny Estelle, of course, was a longtime Navarro coach, and he's been on the bench for North Texas. And you kind of saw the internal move work with Ross Hodge, and so like a lot of people kind of felt like, oh, they would just continue that. I think what Jared Mosley, above all else, likes is head coaching experience and like Division 1 head coaching experience, and I think that's something that we've seen kind of across all sports. If I'm being honest, women's basketball, of course, with Burton, and then Eric Morris for football. So like he likes to have whether you've been a coordinator or a top assistant. He likes the fact that you've coached somewhere for a long period of time as a head coach. Ross Hodge, of course, before he was at North Texas, he had been a long time head coach, and so this one was a little bit like you mentioned. It is the end of an era a little bit because there's no ties to the state. Cleveland State didn't exactly set the world on fire, right? They were good. They were a respectable team. It's a hard job, so like I'm not gonna act like it was like no easy feat. I believe they had 1 year where they kind of finished near the bottom of the horizon, but like they still had 20 wins that year. Um, and yeah, it's not the prettiest brand of basketball, but also like as we've seen with a lot of these coaches at a lower level, going up to a mid major, right? Because I would say the Horizon League's not there, not a mid major. It's probably a lower level school conference. Is that more of necessity, or is that the style that you want? Right? Did he have to play that way at Cleveland State? And now that he's at North Texas, do we see something a little bit different, like we saw with Grant McCaslin? Um, I'm willing to bet that a little bit. I'm willing to bet that maybe, hey, Cleveland State's not the best job, and that's just kind of the style he had to play to make them competitive and to get them to top three spots in the Horizon League. That was kind of dominated by Oakland last year and then Robert Morris this year.
yeah.
I'm willing to give it a chance, and I'm a little optimistic because I do like the fresh direction, right? Although the old direction was nice and it was working, I don't. I'm never discouraged by somebody changing directions and trying to go something different instead of trying to hang on to what's
Yes.
worked.
Yes. I am routinely skeptical of hiring from within. I
Mm,
think at the very least you need to do your due diligence of looking elsewhere to
yeah.
see what else is available out there. Too many times in sports we see it just an automatic, all right, boom, you're next. And I think the
Hmm.
Ross Hodge situation is different because I think Ross is like clearly McCaslin's left hand man. Johnny Estelle
Hmm.
was the assistant coach, but I wouldn't say he's like
Yeah.
clearly Ross's like left hand man. Like you're not going in
Right.
straight succession there.
Right.
So I have no problem with this. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, there's a talent acquisition standpoint when you play in the American. You're going against Memphis. You're going against
That's
these.
the one thing I'm interested in is that Grant and Ross were excellent at picking out of JUCOs,
Yes.
right? Like excellent at getting guys who were clearly Division 1 caliber in JUCO. That's the one thing I'm curious about because
Yeah.
so far they've only brought in Cleveland State guys,
Yeah.
and like we'll see. But that's a big thing. Asking Cleveland State guys to come in and play in the AAC, we'll see. But that was the one. That's the one thing that I'm like, can they find a replacement for Grant and Ross's really good junior college eye?
That's gonna lie. That's another reason why it's just like I go into this completely open minded because you
Sure.
go
Yeah.
from Grant to Ross. I'm like, there's the
The
odds of
same
you
person,
hitting on
basically.
3 straight the odds of you hitting on 3 straight coaches at North Texas, at any
Yeah,
mid-major school,
on
even
the
a high
same
major
staff.
school, it's
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard.
yeah.
So, wish him the best. We'll see. We'll have him on a podcast at some point soon. I'm
Oh,
very, very sure about that. We'll get
yeah.
to talk to him and learn a little bit about what he wants to do. All right, Stephen F. Austin hired Matt Brower. They fired Kyle Keller.
Mhm.
That was the one in the middle of the year, right? I get them and
Yes.
some other ones confused, but yes. So we waited on this hire for a little bit. Matt Brower,
Well,
like I
Kyle
said,
Keller joined, A&M staff,
there you go.
so
Like I said,
he'll be under
that's a
McMillan.
really good pickup. That's a good pickup for
That
Buffalo.
really it really is a good pickup. There's also rumors, I don't they're just on Twitter right now, but, like, there's also rumors that, like, Rodney Terry's floating around in the ether potentially there. We'll see.
Um, yeah. Matt Brower, from North Texas. I shouldn't say originally, but from where I knew him from was from North
Right.
Texas, and
Yep.
then after that, joined Grant McCasland at Texas Tech. Um, I think this is a really good hire. I think this is an up and comer in the game here, where he's gonna come have some new energy here. This is his first real shot at doing this and at this level, and I'm excited to
Mhm.
see what he can do. I don't have too much to like break down. I know he's a really good guy. I've talked to him a lot. We'll see how he recruits. We'll see how he does at SFA. It's not like an easy job by any means.
Yeah.
But I will say, in terms of the Southland goes, you are expected to be competitive with the top end in the Southland. Like, you're not in the whack anymore. So
Mhm.
you come in with some expectations fairly quickly.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a good job, right? SFA is a team that has historically been consistently really, really good. And until the last couple years of Kyle Keller was still really, really good. So I think this is a great swing that they take on a guy who, again, if a month later, if this happens a week or so later or whatever, he's probably in North Texas, right? He's probably at a bigger mid major who would like to have somebody of his caliber. So, yeah, I thought it was a great hire for them, and SFA should be able to bounce back quickly.
All right, that's the men's side. Like we said, we already covered Texas firing Rodney Terry, hiring Sean Miller. I know they brought in your boy Ulrich.
Yeah,
Ulrich, I can never. I don't remember his last name.
Malagi,
Malagi. Malagi. Thank you.
Malagi,
I get it
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So there's one. He's back in Texas at
yeah.
least.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's somebody who I felt like should have had a job by now. But I think he's being pretty smart with his offerings. Um, he was a top assistant at Texas Tech before under Chris Beard. Then he went to Texas followed Chris Beard to Texas. Then ended up following Jerome Tang, going to Kansas State with Jerome Tang to be his top assistant. Now he's coming back to Texas, I believe, to also be the associate head coach
Mhm.
under Sean Miller. So I think that's going to be a great step for him. He's somebody who, again, I think will be a head coach in another year or two. Excellent recruiter, obviously great. You can't really call him like, I guess you can call him a Chris Beard coaching tree, but it's kind of spanned everywhere. He's been at UTA under Scott Cross. He's been under Brad Underwood. So, like, I think you can really call him whatever you need to. But yeah, I really do think he's the next head coaching candidate somewhere in the state.
Yeah. On the women's side,
Yep.
we've kind of talked about. No, we didn't. Houston fired Ron Huey. This was a long
Mm,
time ago at this point. Fired Ronald
yeah.
Huey, hired Matthew Mitchell. Matthew Mitchell, most recently, coach at Kentucky from 2007 to 2020. Um, this is not a surprise in terms of the change. I didn't know much
Mhm.
about Matthew Mitchell when it was announced.
Yeah.
Looking into it just on the surface level, I'm cool with it. I'm interested to see, and already I've seen some Houston in the mix for some transfer portal players that I just didn't think they'd be in the mix for, but now they're kind of
Yeah.
getting there. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, it was basically, I think when Matthew Mitchell had to resign at Kentucky, I think it was basically like he had to have like brain surgery. Like it was some serious health concerns that he ended up leaving. Yeah, here it is. Let's see. This is from the Lexington Herald Leader back in 2021. He had, let me see. Anyway, regardless, he did a good job at Kentucky. He was not fired from Kentucky, right? He
Yeah.
left. And so what ended up happening was this freed up Houston to make a pretty good move. Hopefully I'm assuming he's healthy now. Let's see. Here we go. late June brain surgery. The operation had been necessitated by a head injury suffered in March. This is 2021, and it was, let me see, but some type
Jeez.
of, I don't know, something complicated. But regardless, it was some scary stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
legitimate, like brain surgery, scary stuff. And so like he seems to be all good now. This is a head coach with pedigree, right? He's coached in the SEC. He's coached well in the SEC, a Kentucky team that was pretty respectable under him. He made the tournament almost every single year when he was there. So I'm if you're a Houston fan, let's see, two Elite Eights, one and two Sweet 16s. Sorry, three Elite Eights and two Sweet 16s at Kentucky. If you're a Houston fan, that's kind of the guy you want to at least stabilize what you have, right? Is he going to get you the heights of what you maybe want to see? Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he's not that old either. Let me see, he's 54. Yeah, he quit when he was not even 50.
Yeah.
Um, and so maybe there's another level, but regardless, you're looking to raise the floor of Houston
Yes.
women's basketball right now.
Yes.
That's the
Just get out
biggest
the
concern.
gutter. Just get out the
Yes.
gutter here. Please. But yes, I do. We'll see. I'll definitely try to. We'll get all these coaches on a podcast at some point here.
Yeah,
But I'm
for
interested to
sure.
hear what he has to say and how he's approaching this. All right, SMU. Toyo Wilson fired. Adia Barnes from Arizona is hired.
Our boy
Um,
Rob, he made the Virginia staff. He's the associate head coach on the Virginia staff right now. So
there you go. Yeah, oh yeah. Shout out to him. We'll see if we still have him on the podcast.
yeah,
Talk
no,
about
right, yeah, Virginia basketball.
Virginia. So yeah. Toyo Wilson fired from SMU. Adia Barnes from Arizona is hired. This is one that I know made some waves. I think this was
Yeah.
really interesting with Barnes being an Arizona like alum basically, or having like
Mhm.
being from there, uh, and having a lot of success when she was at Arizona, and now she's making the move over to. I mean, she was there for 10 seasons, including
Yeah.
multiple tournament runs and whatnot. So now she's going to SMU, only 48 years old. What are our initial thoughts here?
At first, it was a little underwhelming because, like, Arizona, it was kind of like a Buzz Williams situation where, like, Arizona fans were like, "Oh, we got, she's gone," kind of a deal. And like, I guess I hadn't realized how mid Arizona's been since that national
Yeah.
title run that they had. I like they've cracked 20 wins, but that's kind of been it, right? It seems more and more like that Ari McDonald was like a big part of why they were successful. And ever since post Ari McDonald, it's been like kind of a downslope. I was talking with an SMU fan on Twitter, and he mentioned it. And I think I kind of see this similarly in the Andy Enfield hire, where it's like she's recruited well at Arizona. They've gotten some 4 or 5 star recruits. They've gotten some pretty big. I believe both Madison Connor and Lauren Ware started at Arizona, so like she knows how to bring in talent. Has she hit the highs that you probably would have wanted to see? Probably not. But if you're SMU, that standard, you will take that standard and then you'll worry about the rest later, right? If Andy Enfield turns SMU into what USC was and they're complaining that they're not making the Elite Eight or Sweet 16, that's better than where you were, and you will worry about that problem when you get to it, right? Similarly here, if you're Adia Barnes and you're getting SMU to the second round, to the NCAA tournament in the first place, you will worry about when that gets old in 5 or 6 years later
Yes.
down the line.
Yeah.
So he
Exactly.
was like, that was basically what he was saying. And I was like, you know what? That makes sense. From where you guys have been, you'll take, oh, we've only made the tournament. And then you'll worry about if that gets old 5 years from now, okay, then you move on from her.
It's just like on the men's side, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I think, yeah, you got to get there first, and then you could start having
Right.
expectations. So I appreciate the self awareness from everybody involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And it seems, and again, Adia Barnes, I think she's a really good recruiter. She's going to have them in the mix for. To me, the biggest thing for SMU should be keeping a lot of that Dallas talent in Dallas. There's a lot of high school talent in Dallas that they have the money to keep and recruit. And so if they can do that, that's a great start.
yeah. Toyle Wilson, hired at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, only 43 years old. I mean, I'm cool with it. I didn't like hate her style or anything like that. I think the SMU
Right.
job might have just been a little bit too, especially when they moved
And
to
I,
the ACC. It was just kind of like,
yeah.
okay, yeah, that's a lot
And
for us.
the portal era, I don't know if she's that like in the era of NIL and portal. I don't know if she's like necessarily cut out for that, right? She signed up for a different job basically. Um, And at Corpus Christi, I think she can get back to a lot of just recruiting and coaching type stuff as opposed to like worrying about SMU's budget.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm hoping Corpus is a good program. So like I'm hoping that there's going to be some stability there for her to work on and kind of build up.
Exactly. The other ones here, one that surprised us here was Incarnate Word, Jeff Dow, out,
Yeah,
and I couldn't. The more I read about it, I couldn't tell if it was like a firing or if it was just
it was more
parting
of a
ways.
mutual, like more of, from what I understand, it was more or less a fire, which a lot of people are surprised. A lot of people were surprised by because he had done a pretty good
He did a
job there.
great
Like
job.
it's what do you expect if you're UIW, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, what your best player went to UTSA, okay?
Yeah, they
Like,
lost their best player every year, like Jocelyn
yeah,
Moore and then Nina De Leon Negron. Like, yeah, they continued to be competitive in the Southland every year. So that's why I was like looking for. I was like, there's no way they actually fired him, but I do think just reading it, like it definitely was like a pushing, nudging out at the very least. And then he goes and gets the job at Southeastern, who just won the conference. And you're like, okay,
yeah,
or at least won the regular season conference and made the tournament championship. So that's a very
right.
good job as well. So I'm like, okay, we know we can
I
coach.
don't know.
They
And
hired
so they
Jasmine
go,
Player
yeah,
from
yeah. I was
I
gonna
know,
say they bring in Jasmine Player from Oklahoma State, associate head coach there, 37 years old, really young. Again, we'll see. I'm optimistic, right? Oklahoma State's done a pretty good job there. Seemingly seemingly a program that was kind of dead in the water for a couple years, then like hit a new rebound this year
yeah,
on the women's side. So I'm fascinated to see what they saw in to me they clearly wanted to go young and they clearly wanted a new face because Dow was had been there for a while and so like they were clearly trying to figure something out. I'm curious what the difference is that they were willing to gamble on
yeah,
this because you don't push out Dow unless you feel like Jasmine Player's your guy, your girl, and you go and she's like, oh, this plan that she gives to recruit Sandage or whatever, right? There has to be some type of plan, and I'm willing to give her a chance. We'll see what she puts together. But yeah, it was definitely a weird situation.
yeah. The other two changes here, both or no, not both. Prairie View, Sandy Pugh resigned. No new hire
Yeah,
yet, and then Houston Christian, Donna Finney was fired. No new hire yet for either one of those
yeah,
two. So
yeah. I mean, what
struggling
would you say is the better?
programs.
What would you say is the better job out of those two? Prairie View, right?
Prairie View, yeah, yeah, Prairie View,
Probably.
Prairie View.
Yeah, because at least eh, Houston Christian's going to be hard to compete in that conference. Prairie View, again, we've seen it with the SWAC. Like, there's going to be one or two at the top that don't change, but then there's going to be that third and fourth place that just kind of nebulous. So if Prairie View can get the right player, and then they've kind of lived, Texas Southern's done this too on both the men's and women's side. If they live off those players who just fall out of the mid majors and they're like they're good, but well, for whatever reason they didn't live up to certain expectations. I think this could be a potential quick turnaround depending on who they get. So
yeah, I think Prairie View definitely is the better job now thinking about it.
yeah.
All right, they're all the
Hold on,
coaching
did you just see
changes.
this?
What happened? What happened?
Malaysia for Wiley's in the portal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Lulu Kesson
Interesting.
from the Greenville News and USA Today just reported that Malaysia for Wiley's in the portal. What?
Well, I mean, they did go and get Tanai Latson, who
I guess, but
kind of repetitive.
Jesus. Anyway, sorry. That's a good transition for the portal
Yeah,
now
good
because
transition over there to the portal.
oh my god.
Well, in case we do split this into two podcasts, thank you for
Yeah.
joining us. We'll do a transfer portal podcast, which will be up immediately after if it's just two separate podcasts. Um, it's just reeling right now. It's just like breathing heavy.
That's crazy because like South Carolina doesn't get hit by the transfer portal like that.
Yes, yes,
Man.
yes. That is crazy. All right. We'll be back to talk to y'all later on the transfer portal.